All right. So after I beat Ghost of Yotei, I definitely had a lot of thoughts, and I kind of just wanted to sit on them for a little bit, just because I don't know. The conversation I felt was kind of muted on this game. It reviewed very well. I think overall most people walked away happy, but I kind of wanted to see where the conversation landed on this one. So now that I kind of took some time after beating it and kind of reflected on it, revisited a little bit more, just to kind of like solidify my thoughts on this game, I'm ready to finally give my thoughts, my review on Ghost of Yotei. For you guys who don't know, Ghost of Yotei is the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima was Sucker Punch's, you know, last big change from what they used to do with Infamous. They kind of went into this open world Ubisoft style game. They definitely found ways to, you know, perfect the open world genre. I think, especially that style of like objective based checklist style, open world game. And I think a lot of people look at Ghost of Yotei as more of the same, right? And I think a lot of people were expecting, innovation, and people were hoping that Sucker Punch would be able to push what they did with Ghost of Tsushima to another level. And I mean, no, Sucker Punch didn't do that with Ghost of Yotei. Ghost of Yotei is definitely more of what we got in Tsushima, for better or for worse, right? But I definitely hear some takes. Like I heard a take where someone specifically said it was like a reviewer who said that if you played Ghost of Tsushima, you played Ghost of Yotei, but with a worse story. And I always think that's kind of weird because I don't think anyone really loved Ghost of Tsushima's story for the most part. I mean, there's parts of it that definitely I liked in Ghost of Tsushima's story, but overall, it was definitely lacking as far as like the main protagonist, main antagonist overall, right? So, Ghost of Yotei, in my opinion, just to kind of like clear this out the way, I think is Ghost of Tsushima, but better. I think it's more refined. I think it's, more cleaned up, better story, more action, more engaging, a lot more smoother as far as combat is concerned. And Ghost of Tsushima's combat was already pretty freaking amazing. So the fact that Ghost of Yotei was able to, kind of iron out kinks that I didn't even know really existed. Because I think Ghost of Tsushima, again, if I was to play that game from just a gameplay standpoint, pretty freaking perfect. From the combat to the stealth to everything, right? And when I play Ghost of Yotei, I'm realizing, oh my god, it could get even more better. It could be more refined. Changing, weapons versus changing stances looks cooler, feels cooler. Like a lot of it is pretty sick. And I think yeah, Sucker Punch didn't go back and try to reinvent themselves, with this one, right? They didn't go and say, "Hey, what could we do differently?" No, they said, "What could we go back and do better?" How can we make the open world more engaging? How can we make the characters more engaging, the storyline more personal? And like for all of that, I think they definitely hit the head on the they hit the nail. They did their job, right? They did what I wanted them to do, which was Ghost of Tsushima again, but a different story, right? And just to kind of like recap where we're at narratively with Ghost of Yotei, this is a separate standalone story. It has nothing to do with Ghost of Tsushima. It takes hundreds of years after the whole Jinsekai event happens. You play as Atsu, who is to the world of Yotei right now. In the beginning of the game, she's dead to everybody. Her and her family were killed when they were young, when she was young. Everyone died except Atsu, but no one knows that Atsu survived. She ran away, became like a mercenary. Um, Comes back to her place near Mount Yotei, whatever, and is seeking revenge now on the Yotei Six, who are like this kind of you know evil mercenary group that is going around murdering people and like antagonizing the civilians. And they have this like mission statement where they're telling the citizens of this area that the shogun and the samurais are like the problem and they have to like help them rebel against them, etc., right? So that's kind of where you're at. And just for me personally, I feel like this revenge story, yes, it's a revenge story that's been done to death, right? If people killed your family, now you're out to kill them, right? Not only has it been done to death overall in media, but even in this year alone, we had Assassin's Creed Shadows that is beat for beat pretty much that exact same story. All that being said, it's still a really good story. I think Atu and her perspective is really, really cool. Just because I feel like she has her own personal vendetta that is helping out others without really, and she's not intending to help others, right? She has her reasons why she's doing this. She is, you know, not seeking justice for the land and the people, and et cetera, et cetera. She's seeking justice for herself. She kind of fights very, very crazy where she doesn't care if she lives or dies. She puts everything all out there in order to kill the Yotei Six. Whatever it takes, whatever has to be done, she's out there doing it. And that is such a aggressive stance compared to Gensakai, right? Gensakai I think was like that honorable, like we must do what's right in far as like killing people, blah blah blah. And Atu is just not that. She throws all roadblocks out the window. Whatever needs to get done needs to be done. And because of the fact that I think there's like the legends of this, mystery woman who's running around killing the Yote Six and is, doesn't have any fear and, fights crazy, and people are like having rumors that, she is a ghost, that she's actually like a vengeful spirit out to kill the Yote Six. And when you get to see the perspective of like the villains and stuff like that and how they're having their conversations as far as what Atsu's doing, I think it just adds this legendary mythos behind her that kind of carries on throughout the story of the game, that makes it so cool when she interacts with people for the very first time, right? Every time she interacts with somebody and they find out that she is this ghost, or I'm not gonna mispronounce it, but like the Onyo, whatever. Um, and people kind of find out that she is that person and she is actually a human being, and everyone's reaction is very different, whether they're scared or whether they're thankful, whether they show gratitude. And she's always like, don't thank me, or if someone wants to fight her, she's like, you really don't want this, stuff like that. It's just kind of like she's such a laser focused human being in this game, where it's like, this is just what I gotta do. Side quests be damned, everything be damned, like I don't care if somebody's in danger, that's not my job. And I don't know. I really like that in Natsu. I think it creates this level of like, ferociousness that main characters don't typically have. Like not a whole lot of main protagonists have that. And I think it's just a cool way to kind of place a game like, Ghost of Yotei in, like, within this whole narrative scope. But yeah, so overall, as far as like narrative is concerned, I was hooked off rip. And I know that's kind of like, you know, I don't think this is like the most deepest story, and there's not a whole lot of nuance and stuff like that. It's pretty, samurai blockbuster Michael Bay style of storytelling, but it works for what this game is. This is a cool, badass action open world game, and you're doing cool, badass open world shit, And I'm here for that. That's what makes me want to play this game, and why pretty much from the moment that I opened the game up and played it for the first time, I binged the hell out of it until I, you know, beat it. It took me 56 hours to get it done, which compared to Ghost of Yotei, and this is kind of like a cool comparison, at least in my head. Ghost of Tsushima took me 65 hours to beat. Ghost of Yotei took me 56 hours to beat, roughly around that area. And I feel like I got a lot more done in Ghost of Yotei. Like I feel like I almost pretty much 100% of that game. There's like one more ghost mission that I didn't do, etc. Comparative to Ghost of Tsushima, there was quite a little bit, a good amount of stuff that I didn't do. So I was able to do a lot more, I think, in a smaller amount of time, because the game is so streamlined, right? Every stealth event, every mission, every action combat sequence, everything is so streamlined that I never felt like my progression is stopped. I never felt like the movement of the game is, at a standstill. And that's all thanks to all the refinement that this game has gone through. I think it's one of those things that we, as like a gamer, populace, has trouble dealing with, or we always want something new and innovative. And then when we get stuff that's new and innovative, we critique it to all hell. This game did it better because of blah blah blah. This game does that better because blah 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 blah, right? And when we get a game like Ghost of Yotei that is just refinement, refinement, refinement to the point of like super streamlined, we also find ways to complain about that. Oh, I did this already. Oh, this is pretty much just like it was then. And it's like, damn, guys, like, I think it's both cool, right? I think innovation in gaming is always to be applauded. with that being said, refining something to make it, better is also really, it's really good. That's a really important thing in the industry. I think when I was growing up, the amount of times that sequels were, pretty much the same game, just better, whether it's better graphics, better art direction, better narrative, better gameplay, smoother, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's kind of what sequels were. And Ghost of Yotei is definitely, in the truest words, just a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. It is, all those concepts from Tsushima refined to all hell to make fast travel more, smoother, to make questing more smoother. I'm able to jump from beat to beat to beat in a narrative so quickly. And I don't know. I think Sucker Punch needs to be applauded for that. I think a lot of people take stuff like that for granted in games like this. And if that's, maybe that's not what you wanted from Ghost of Yotei, and that's fine. So you might have been let down based off of what you expected. But I think from the entire lead up to this game, I think this is exactly what Sucker Punch was talking about. I don't think Sucker Punch ever said Ghost of Yotei is, gonna take, the franchise to a whole new direction like you've never seen before. It's gonna be groundbreaking and blah blah blah, right? They never said any of those buzzwords. And all that is okay. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel every time we release a game. If every developer was trying to reinvent the wheel to create something brand new for, the gaming audience, blah blah blah, then we would have, I'm gonna be honest, a very terrible place to be playing games in. I feel like there's so many times where I play a game that's trying too hard to be different and they just find ways to make things worse. Like there's certain things that we just figured out in gaming. Like we just figured it out. Why are we changing this? And that is okay. It's okay to take things that you learned and, make it better or work on it to make it smoother and stuff like that. And this game is doing that. It's one of the coolest games I think I played in 2025, from not just from a narrative or a gameplay standpoint, artistically. God darn it, this game looks amazing. Yeah, maybe it's not, the most stunning, PS5 game, right? It's not up there with Death Stranding 2, etc., or Hellblade, blah, blah, blah. But artistically, the art direction in this game is amazing. I think they had a vision, and this game encapsulates that vision every everywhere you look, from the bushes to the trees to the birds to the mountains. Like, it's so beautiful, and the soundtrack is so amazing. For me personally, I love running around this world and just kind of existing. And I think that was my favorite part of Ghost of Tsushima, and that's definitely my favorite part of Ghost of Yotei. Just existing within this world and kind of navigating it as Atsu and feeling like such a badass doing that. That is my favorite thing. Anyways, though, I am coming to the end of this, video review, etc., etc. If, you guys liked Ghost of Tsushima, you're gonna love Ghost of Yotei. If you like open world style games, this is probably one of the best Ubisoft style open world games you can play. Probably pretty much, hard stop. I absolutely love this game. I think it's underrated in a way that, I think a lot of people poo-poo on this game because of the fact that it didn't innovate anything and it only refined. And I think that is kind of a terrible take. I think people should, respect refinement. I think we should, want more games to refine, right? If let's use the example of Claire Expedition 33, if the next, game in that franchise is trying to reinvent the wheel and throw away everything that, worked and try to make something new just for the sake of innovation, I think that's dumb. I think more companies need to learn to refine. I think it'll make making games easier for the development studios. And plus, if a gameplay is great, double down. Give me more of that great gameplay. Anyways, you guys, that's going to be the end of this video. Do me a favor, like, subscribe. Let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are. If you liked the game, if you didn't, and I'll leave it at that one.